Starting with the Gulf and lower Mississippi Valley, a decaying but potent mid-level upper trough is ejecting southeastward through the Central Plains and into the lower Mississippi region. Ahead of this feature, a stalled frontal boundary remains just north of the Gulf states, producing a background of warm advection and elevated moisture. In the Northeast Gulf waters discussion, patchy to dense fog is very likely this morning along and east of the EI 10/12 corridor, where radiative cooling overnight combined with light surface winds and high moisture pooling favored low-level saturation. Meanwhile, a strong Arctic front is forecast to approach by Sunday, with very brisk wind and seas likely to accompany it across the coastal waters late today and into tomorrow. For flights in the Gulf and South Texas corridor, anticipate potential IFR or LIFR conditions near dawn due to fog and low ceilings, then increasing wind shear and gustiness as the front approaches. Now, shifting across to the southeast, especially Florida and the eastern coastal margin, the Miami area discusses a strong surface high north of Florida and a broad mid-level low in the southern Gulf. Retrograding westward, this places South Florida in the north-northeast flow regime, maintaining dry conditions for now. The tight surface pressure gradient has kept breezy east-northeast to east winds in place, with gusts up to 20 to 25 knots expected near the coast. Marine and beach hazards are the primary concern, especially during high tides, and with minor coastal flooding risk given the king tide cycle. For aviation, VFR conditions dominate for now, but turbulence in the boundary layer and possible gusts near takeoff and landing should be monitored. Across the southeast broader region, from the Carolinas into Georgia and Alabama, the dominant story is the interplay between a reinforcing mid-level ridge and the trailing flank of an upper trough over the eastern U.S. This pattern is suppressing wide-scale convection for now, but leaves a broad semi-frontal zone where mesoscale bands could activate this afternoon into evening, especially near the coast and along the I-95 corridor. Flight routes should monitor possible isolated thunderstorms and gust fronts triggered by surface moisture advection and weak upper-level forcing. Ridge-driven subsidence will dominate in many interiors, so expect efficient mixing, warming, and generally stable flight layers above 5,000 feet until late day. In the central U.S. plains into the western Midwest, the upper trough is digging southeastward. Increased dynamic support aloft, coupled with low-level moisture return ahead, is driving scattered to perhaps organized convection. While not directly affecting the southeast now, the downstream propagation of this energy will eventually help destabilize the eastern U.S. later in the weekend. For long-haul flights transiting the central U.S., anticipate stronger wind fields, 500 millibars and 300 millibars jets, and potential for moderate clear air turbulence and stronger surface gusts and convective outflows this afternoon. Looking at the northeast and mid-Atlantic, the pattern continues under ridging aloft and dry low-level flow, leading to mainly benign conditions. Aviation concerns are minor. A few localized patches of fog in sheltered valleys remain possible overnight, but overall operations should remain smooth. From the perspective of climate and geography, the southeast today is in a transition zone. Subtropical moisture is present, but the mid-latitude forcing is fairly weak, And the retrograding mid-level low means the tropics are keeping a relatively benign influence. The surface high off the Carolinas is a classic pattern in autumn, where onshore flow brings cooler, drier air aloft, mixing with warmer boundary layer air and creating gusty coastal conditions rather than deep convection. Meanwhile, in the Gulf states, the large-scale pattern is evolving toward a more winter-like regime with advancing Arctic air and increased cold air advection behind the front. Terrain influences matter. The coastal plain will support fog development where surface drainage occurs, and low-lying rural fields allow radiative cooling, while the inland plateau will mix more efficiently and avoid long-lasting stratus. Key takeaways for pilots and forecasters today. Gulf states, morning fog and low ceilings with potential for IFR. Marine wind hazards increase approaching the front. Florida and southern Atlantic coast. Dry for now, but brisk coastal winds and gusts. Minor coastal flooding risk where king tides coincide with onshore flow. Southeast interior. Generally VFR, but monitor potential late-day isolated convection. And gust fronts near moist boundary zones. Central U.S. upstream trough activity means stronger winds aloft and scattered convection. Consider for transcontinental flight planning. Northeast, quiet pattern, mainly subsidence and dry air. Low risk for major disruptions. For today's operations, the biggest hazards are coastal wind gusts and low-level wind effects along Florida and Gulf Coast, fog over the Gulf states early morning, and the broader evolving wind field and turbulence threat in the central corridor. I'll pause there. If you'd like a breakdown by specific terminal or route, we can drill in.